So good afternoon and welcome. I'm Steve Posios, and I'll be chairing the Consumer Advisory Committee meeting today, what may be the final of this charter. So I wanted to thank all the members, the alternates, the staff, and the public for joining the event. And good afternoon and thanks to Debbie Berlin. I'm glad you got on there, and she's the vice chair of the CAC, and to Mark, Zach, Mike, and all the staff that helped us today. So we have a consumer report to consider dealing in general with text blocking. More specifically, as you may know, the FCC sent us a charge letter, and they've asked specific questions on a narrow range of consumer-oriented issues arising from the growing problems of illegal and unwanted texts. The letter asked the CAC to put its findings into a report, and last week the text blocking working group voted out that report. So today we're considering that for the entire CAC. So I'll now call this meeting to order. Before I begin roll call, I want to welcome the leadership. First, we're going to hear a pre-recorded message from FCC Commissioner Jeffrey Starks, and then we're going to move to a live remarks from Commissioner Nathan Symington. And then from there, we're going to get some additional comments and remarks from the Bureau Chief at the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau, Alejandro Rourke. And so with that, let's go back and let's start with the pre-recorded message, please. This is Jeffrey Starks.
Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your continued service and dedication to the important work of the Consumer Advisory Committee. As you know better than most, protecting America's consumers requires a nuanced understanding of current business and technology. So thank you for bringing your knowledge and expertise to bear. And I'm glad to see that you'll be using that expertise today to discuss the issue of illegal and unwanted text messages. Sometimes at the Commission, we face highly technical issues that we need to connect with the public on what we're doing. This is not one of those issues. Everyone with a cell phone knows that robotexts are on the rise. Here at the FCC, we received over 8,500 complaints about unwanted text messages in the first half of 2022 alone. And sources report there were over 12 billion spam texts in July of 2022. That means nearly 44 spam texts per person in the United States, which I have to say sounds about right. This is much more than just an annoyance. A rise in robotext means a rise in robotext scams. Bad actors are taking advantage of our increased use of texting to stay connected with our friends and family. Through text, scammers can combine the deceptive practices of email phishing and robocalls and trick consumers into sharing sensitive information or clicking on malicious links. With a problem this big, we need to address it on multiple fronts. And so last fall, the chairwoman proposed rules to combat the rise of robotext, and I supported that proposal and that rulemaking moving forward. Earlier this summer, the FCC robocall response team issued a consumer alert on robotext scams. And as always, our colleagues in the Enforcement Bureau are hard at work enforcing our existing rules as we continue to partner with state attorneys general across the country on investigations and enforcement. And we turn to you, which brings us here today. We know the value of CAC's guidance in this space. You were the first voices pushing for stir-shaken technology back in 2018, and you've provided your keen insight on these important issues ever since. So we knew we could turn to you to advise us on the rising issue of robotext, and so we charged you with investigating and reporting to us on key questions, the answers to which will guide our work in this space. What's the full extent and scope of illegal and unwanted texting problems? How are spammers using text to harm consumers? What are the best methods for consumers to avoid or manage them? And how can we at the Commission use our resources to best educate consumers on how to prevent those harms? How is this problem impacting our public safety infrastructure? How can we protect emergency call centers from illegal and unwanted texts without negatively impacting legitimate emergency text messages? And finally, how should we take into account accessibility concerns when developing solutions to combat robotext? All of this is a tall order. Thank you for rising to the challenge, answering the call. I'm eager to hear what you have to tell us and your suggestions and guidance. Thank you for the continued good work on this important issue and the many others facing American consumers today, as well, of course. Thank you to CGB for the support they give this committee, as well as their hard work on behalf of all Americans. Everyone, of course, be safe and be well. Thank you.
Okay, well, those are excellent comments from Commissioner Jeffrey Starks. So now next, it's with my great pleasure to introduce FCC Commissioner Nathan Symington.
Good afternoon, and thanks very much, Steve, for the kind invitation to speak today. And thanks, of course, to everyone participating in today's meeting of the Consumer Advisory Committee. Today, the committee considers recommendations regarding the blocking of illegal and unwanted robotexts. So certainly, we're all thankful to the members of the CAC for their diligent work on this topic. If you ask the typical American citizen what the most important priority of the FCC needs to be, it's very simple: blocking spam. Spam calls are a scourge on the American public, and I'm grateful to the chairwoman for her continued leadership in fighting them. Spam texts, while no less significant a priority than spam calls, are a sometimes less visible problem. But they ought not to be, because as we see from the constantly evolving practices of scammers to avoid safeguards put in place to prevent robocalls, scammers similarly are becoming more sophisticated in the use of illegal robotexts. Indeed, as safeguards implemented by the Commission against illegal robocalls grow in effectiveness, we can expect scammers to shift focus and resources to new modalities of scamming. In fact, we see some indication of just that. If the number of complaints the FCC fields is any indication of the scope of the problem, we're looking at an approximately threefold increase in robotexts since just 2019. Such texts come in many forms. They may claim that you have an unpaid bill or undelivered package. They may claim that you're in trouble with the law, or they may just contain a link. All of them are dangerous. All of them are illegal, and they all must be stopped. We need to empower carriers with the tools to stop illegal robotexts, while at the same time vouchsafing the billions of legal text messages transmitted across carrier and IP networks every day. Weeds may require weeding, spot treatment with weed killers, or even grass-safe whole lawn treatments, but they rarely merit a rototiller unless, of course, you're replanting with heritage plants. I'll be interested to learn about the recommendations from today's meeting to meet the dual challenge of stopping illegal robotexts and preserving the lawful use of texting. So thanks again for the kind invitation to speak.
Thank you for those remarks, Commissioner, and thank you for your leadership at the FCC. And now we're joined by the Bureau Chief at the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau, Alejandro Rorick.
Okay, I'm back. Hi, guys. So good afternoon and welcome to our final meeting of the Consumer Advisory Committee. I wanted to first of all start by thanking all of you and your great work over the course of these past 2 years. It's been 2 years of COVID and Zoom meetings and tight deadlines. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and also acknowledge and appreciate your work both on the text messaging report, which we are meeting on today, but also on your valuable contributions on another big consumer issue, which is the broadband label. We at the Commission know that what we get from you, your recommendations and your reports reflect just a fraction of the work that goes into creating this work product. I know that there are a lot of meetings, collaborations, and drafts along the way, and that this is all on top of your full-time job. And so we are very, very much, I think, appreciative of your efforts. The CAC is truly a unique body at the FCC in its mission and composition. And again, we just thank you. I thank you for your time, your talent, and your insight. I also wanted to extend a very special thank you to our current chair, Steve Posiask, and Deputy Chair, Deborah Berlin, for their leadership and your steady hand at the helm of the CAC. I know it's been a crazy ride these last couple of years, but I felt definitely comfort knowing that the two of you were helping to lead our efforts. So as a quick reminder, we are moving forward with rechartering the CAC and currently accepting applications for our next group. Many thanks to all of those that have already applied. And for those that haven't and are interested, the deadline to apply is September 21st. So put that on your calendar, and we would love to have you join the effort for the next iteration of our CAC. So as we all know, preventing spam and robocalls is an important priority for the Commission and for FCC Chairwoman Rosenworcel. So we are excited to receive your text messaging report because we know that text messaging is such a critical form of communication between people, between businesses and people, and can serve many useful functions if used correctly and with our consent. You know, we all want to make sure that this resource remains valuable to users and not a source of, like Commissioner Simonson mentioned, spam and potential fraud. We look forward to reading and using your report as we consider what we at the FCC can do to continue to protect consumers. But with that, I mean, I'll just say thank you again, and thank you again for all of the staff at CGB that kind of helps ensure that we all have everything that we need to get to this point. And with that, I'm happy to turn the time over back to Steve, who will lead today's meeting. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments and your guidance today. Really do appreciate it. So now let's take roll. So what I'll do is I'll call the organization name, and if you could turn on your audio and let me know who's representing, if it's the primary, if you have an alternate or both. I just want to keep track. As you all know, when it comes to voting, for the purpose of voting, one vote per organization. So obviously ACI is here, and Project Goal is here. That's Debbie. And with that, AARP.
Yes, Coralette Hannon is here with AARP. I am the alternate representative for AARP. Dewi Kasai could not make it today.
Thank you. ACA Connects.
Brian Hurley is here today on behalf of ACA Connects. I'm the primary member.
Thank you. American Council of the Blind. American Council of the Blind. AT&T.
Vonda Long is present. I'm the primary.
Thank you.
And sorry, this is Clark Rockfall with the American Council of the Blind.
Thank you. Call for action.
Hi there, Shirley Rooker. As the founding chair of this organization, I am so pleased with the work they're doing. And Steve, you and Debbie are to be congratulated on all the hard work, as are the other members. Okay, I'm the main representative from Call for Action.
Thank you, Shirley. Great hearing your voice. Consumer Federation of America.
Irene Leach, and I'm the primary participant.
Thank you. Good hearing your voice too. Consumer Reports.
Hi, Steve. This is John Schwantes, and I'm the primary. Thank you.
Got it. Consumer Technology Association. Consumer Technology Association. Okay, we'll move on. CTIA.
Hi, Steve. This is Sarah Leggin, and I'm the primary representative.
All right. Okay, so Digital Liberty, I think that's a vacant slot, so that's marked not present. Digital Policy Institute, I think I saw Barry's face there.
Yeah, there I am. Barry Umansky, the primary. Hi, Steve, everybody else.
Great, good seeing you. All right, Encompass.
Hi, this is Lindsay Stern with Encompass. I'm the primary representative.
All right, hey, Lindsay, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Cook, excuse me. Eric Cook. Okay. LGBT Technology Institute.
Hi, this is Kristen Kelly. I'm here for LGBT Tech, and I am the alternate representative standing in for Ellie Bissett.
Gotcha. That's great. Thank you. Massachusetts Department of Telecom and Cable.
Good afternoon, Steve. Jocelyn Day, the primary representative, and with me today also is William Bennington, my alternate for the Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications and Cable. Hi, everyone.
Wonderful. Hello.
This is William, just saying hi.
Okay. Wes Morrison. Wes Morrison. National Association of Broadcasters.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Liliana Rañón, representing NAB. I am the alternate representing and sitting in for Larry Walk, who couldn't make it today.
Got it. Thank you. The National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates.
Hello, everyone. This is Thaddeus Johnson. I'm the primary representative.
Hi, Thaddeus. The National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Administrators.
Hello, this is Mitsuko Herrera. I am the primary. Rick Elrod, the alternate, is also in attendance. I will vote today.
Thank you. The National Conference of State Legislatures. The National Conference of State Legislatures. The National Consumer Law Center.
Hi, this is Margot Saunders. I work for the National Consumer Law Center and I'm the alternate.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have the National Consumers League.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's John Brayo, and I am the primary for NCL.
Thank you, John. NCTA.
Hi, Radhika Bhatt, the primary for NCTA is on.
Thank you. Next Century Cities.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ryan Johnston, the alternate with Next Century Cities.
Thank you. Rural Rise.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tina Metzer. I'm the primary.
Gotcha. Thank you. Michael Santorelli, I believe, is out. Taxpayer Protection Alliance. Taxpayer Protection Alliance.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Hey, Steve and the crew. Johnny Campus, I'm the primary representative.
Hey, Johnny. All right. The Telecommunications for Deaf and Hard Hearing.
Hi, this is Eric Hiker with TDI.
Thank you. The Trevor Project. The Trevor Project. US Telecom.
Hi, Diana Eisner from US Telecom. I am the secondary representative.
Okay. Good. Let me go back through and count here. That gives me 25. We have quorum. So, did I miss anyone else, by the way, before we move on? Did I miss anyone else? Was there anyone on the phone? I didn't see anyone on the phone. Okay, so with the quorum, let me just ask Vice Chair Deborah Berlin, did you have anything you wanted to add before we start?
No, Steve, thank you. I, just want to thank everyone who's been on this working group and the leadership for all the hard work that's gone into this. Before we start, I'm sure I'll offer some thanks later as well. So here we go.
Okay, so the main item on the agenda, as I explained earlier, is the CAC's consideration of the text blocking group's report on the growing problem of illegal and unwanted text. I want to note that questions to the public can be sent to the cac@fcc.gov. That's cac@fcc.gov. And with that, I want to turn it over to the working group, and representing the working group today is John Brayolt, who will explain the findings of the consumer report. John?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great. So thank you, Steve, for that introduction. As the agenda suggests, I am not Michael Santarelli, who is the chair of our working group. Unfortunately, Michael couldn't be with us today because of a medical emergency, best wishes for a speedy recovery for Michael. So he asked me to step in and present the text message blocking report prepared by our working group. Before I get started on that, I just wanted to say a couple of thanks. As I mentioned, Michael was a tremendous chair of the working group, helping keep us on task throughout this process. I want to thank my co-authors on this report, Sarah Leggin and Amy Bender from CTIA, as well as their colleague Matthew Gerst, who was with CTIA, is now with WBK. Also, all the members of the working group who were always very involved in putting this report together, never shy about offering edits, and always eager to find common ground. And finally, I just wanted to thank all of the experts, as well as the FCC staff, particularly Mike Hennigan, who gave generously over their time over a pretty compressed time frame, as Alejandro mentioned in his opening remarks, to get this report out the door. So thank you to all of those folks. This is definitely a report that came together with many hands. So I'm glad that we are finally at the end of the road today, hopefully. I'll get started. So this report began with a charge letter from Alejandro at the CGB to the CAC. And that charge letter asked us to examine 5 questions. The first was the extent of the illegal and unwanted text problem. The second was how the illegal and unwanted texts harm consumers and what the best methods are for consumers to avoid and or manage those texts. Number 3, how the commission could consider, or should consider rather, educating consumers on how consumers can evade those harms. Number 4, whether and how illegal text messages posed a threat to emergency telephone numbers like PSAPs, hospitals, and other emergency institutions, and how the commission could protect emergency call centers without negatively impacting legitimate emergency text messages. And finally, the commission asked the CAC and our working group how the commission should take into account accessibility concerns when developing solutions to combat unwanted text messages. This is all in the charge letter that I hope you all had a chance to take a look at when it was circulated to the CAC a couple days ago. So a word about process on this report. As I mentioned, we received the charge letter from Alejandro on April 25th. And we quickly brought together a group of representatives into the working group from industry, from consumer groups, and from state and local regulators. The full list of members of the working group is in, I think, the second appendix of the full report. We began meeting weekly on May 17th, and we met every week from then until August 23rd. We had several meetings at the beginning where we focused on scoping the report. So for example, we agreed to focus on SMS and MMS and not over-the-top messaging apps like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. During our meetings, we heard from 8 experts who represented various stakeholders in the text messaging ecosystem. As I mentioned, based on all of that feedback and discussion, the initial draft was co-authored by my colleagues at CTIA and by me. Following the circulation of that initial draft, it went through multiple rounds of edits based on feedback we heard in working group meetings, and ultimately it was approved unanimously by the working group on August 23rd. So what did we find? We have a number of notable findings that I'll summarize here. First, what we found is that text messaging is a highly trusted communications platform by consumers. SMS open rates are estimated to be as high as 98% and response rates as high as 45%. That is significantly better than email open and response rates. So for example, email open rates are about 20%, the response rates are about 6% respectively. Consumers say that they prefer to be contacted via text versus voice calling by a nearly 2-to-1 margin. And nearly half of all consumers send a text every single day. That's more than use any other communications medium, including voice or email. That said, as I think was alluded to by earlier by excuse me, Commissioner Starks, complaints about unwanted texts are increasing. So in 2021, the Commission received more than 15,000 complaints about unwanted text messages compared to 5,700 in 2019. Complaints to the Federal Trade Commission about unwanted texts increased to 377,000 in 2021, up from just over 100,000 in 2019. These complaint numbers are largely reflected in third-party data that we looked at as part of putting together a report. For example, Truecaller reports that in May 2022, the average number of spam texts per month is 19.5 per consumer. That's a significant year-over-year increase since 2019. So for example, in 2019, there were 10.6 unwanted spam texts per person each month. So just to put those numbers in some context, the volume of complaints about text messages is still lower than the volume of complaints from consumers about other platforms like robocalls. I think you heard earlier that remains a top concern for many consumers. And the FCC has reported that complaints about robotexts are only about 1/3 of the number of complaints about auto-dialed calls and about 1/4 of complaints about spoofing violations. Nonetheless, it's certainly a growing problem. And so we have looked at what is being done to protect consumers from illegal unwanted texts. What we found is that the efforts and the tools that are available to address this problem have grown significantly and evolved significantly over the past few decades. Industry stakeholders are deploying a variety of tools and processes and best practices to try and help maintain that customer trust in text messaging that I talked about earlier. So for example, the working group spent a considerable amount of time examining the effectiveness of CTIA's messaging principles and best practices in preventing unwanted text messages. Regarding PSAPs and the impact of unwanted and illegal text messages on emergency services, while communications such as 911 and 988 may be vulnerable to the effects of robotexts, we did not find significant information about the scope of this issue or much information about available solutions. We also did not find that illegal unwanted texts are any more of a problem among people with disabilities or senior citizens than with the overall US population. We did note that accessibility concerns related to blocking illegal and unwanted text messages apply to more people than simply those with disabilities. So for example, blocking tools that are compatible with screen readers for the vision impaired, the ability to enlarge text on a smartphone and read aloud applications, we found that they could have benefits for seniors with disabilities related to sight, hearing, or mobility, in addition to people who are not seniors, for example, with those disabilities. So what are we recommending? We have 4 main recommendations to the Commission. First, the report recommends the Commission work to encourage broader adoption of industry best practices related to stopping illegal and unwanted text messages, such as CTIA's messaging principles and best practices. We believe the Commission, along with federal and state government partners and other stakeholders, should enhance efforts to educate consumers about how to protect themselves from unwanted messages, such as with tools such as device level blocking, network level message blocking, and also reporting unwanted messages through the 7726 or spam, if you're looking at a numerical keyboard, through that system. Regarding PSAPs, because we found a relative lack of information about the scope of illegal unwanted texts and how they're affecting PSAPs, we did not make a recommendation. We simply urged the Commission to continue monitoring the issue to make sure that this does not become a bigger problem for emergency call centers, while also making sure that any solutions do not negatively impact legitimate emergency text messages. And finally, with regards to accessibility concerns, we encourage the Commission to conduct more education and targeted outreach to the disability community to help enhance awareness of tools like 7726. And we also recommended that the Commission ensure that educational materials that they produce use consistent terminology, be provided in multiple languages, and be accessible to people with disabilities. So that's the extent of my report out on behalf of the working group. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Steve, if that's how you want to proceed with this. But again, thank you to all of my collaborators on this report. It really was the work of many hands, and we were really pleased with how this report turned out. Steve?
Yeah, thank you, John. And look, thanks to the entire working group. I mean, it's an incredible amount of work in such a short period of time. Before we move forward, I just want to note that any questions from the public can be sent to cac@fcc.gov. Now, before we begin the discussion, John, and then after the discussion, we'll entertain amendments. Does anyone first move to adopt the report?
This is Sarah Leggin. I'll move to adopt the report.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it, Steve.
Okay, then with that, let me open it up to the floor for discussion. Again, we'll move to amendments after the discussion. So as I said before, raise your hand to be recognized if you remember how to do that. And I don't see any phone lines, so I'll try to call on them. John, feel free to jump in if you see a hand up, entertain any questions at this point on discussion, answering the questions. Are there any questions or any discussion, or people have concerns at this point? Any comments or discussion?
I just want a second. I think there's a tremendous amount of work that people put in, and there's like a constant, ongoing, never-ending training session of things happening. And I really commend everybody who really brought this all together.
Oh, Mitzi, I completely agree. It's way beyond my expectations. So if there are no questions, I'm looking, and other discussion, hearing none. Now for amendments. So as we move to potential amendments, in some cases, look, there may be some incidental formatting changes we call friendly. Feel free, we can raise those, and things that we such as purely editorial. And then of course we can also consider other amendments as well. So if you have an amendment for the report, again, raise your hand. The hand symbol is available in the lower row labeled reactions. from reactions, you can hit the raised hand. Remember to lower your hand when you're called on to speak. And I guess we'll move from there. So, okay, Lindsay, I'll call on you. And by the way, John, I'll let you go ahead and handle any questions with this, and I'll take it from there and I'll help you out. Thanks.
Hi, thank you so much, Steve. This is Lindsay Stern on behalf of Encompass, which is the Internet and Competitive Networks Association. And just on behalf of Encompass, I want to reiterate everyone here today, and I really want to thank all the members of the working group. I was not part of the working group, but I can see how much hard work was put into this report. I found it to be a really helpful overview of the issues, and I just found it really well done. So thank you so much to everyone in the working group. Encompass would like to propose a one-sentence amendment on a very minor issue to the end of footnote 10, which is on page 6. And Steve, I'm wondering the best way to move forward with the proposed amendment. Should I just, since it's just one sentence, should I just explain it and then maybe put it in the chat afterwards? Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's do just that. So
Okay.
Everyone, if you have the report, you want to move to that reference page, and I believe it was a footnote. So let's hear the amendment.
Great, so thanks so much. So specifically on page 6 of the report, if you're looking at it, it contains the following sentence in section 2B. In the middle of the second paragraph, it starts with stakeholders. I'll just read the sentence that the footnote I'm talking about goes on to. So the sentence in the report is stakeholders apply these guidelines to each other through commercial agreements and policies in conjunction with registration and vetting frameworks to protect consumers from unwanted messages and maintain consumer trust in the platform. So footnote 10 is at the end of that sentence, if you see that, and then it then goes on and it has several citations to industry 10 DLC information. So you'll see there's a string cite to AT&T, T-Mobile, Twilio, an article, and then Verizon. So if everyone's with me on that. So Encompass proposes the following sentence be added to the end of footnote 10, and it would be adding the following. A number of public advocacy groups have, however, expressed concern that the 10 DLC framework hampers their ability to engage in outreach using P2P texting. And then we would cite to the website of the Coalition for Open Messaging. And I'm happy to add that sentence in the chat.
Could you read it again, please?
Yeah, definitely.
Slowly.
Yes. So this would be a sentence added to the end of footnote 10. A number of public advocacy groups have, however, expressed concern that the 10 DLC framework hampers their ability to engage in outreach using P2P texting. And then we would cite to the website of the Coalition for Open Messaging. And I'm happy to add this sentence into the chat. I just wanted to give a very brief explanation if that's helpful. So Encompass thinks that adding this language into the footnote would help acknowledge another side of the 10 DLC issue. So there are many public interest and advocacy groups that have come out against the 10 DLC form of messaging. These organizations are concerned that 10 DLC can hamper their effectiveness of their organizing tools by potentially discriminating against smaller organizations with less established track records and potentially overwhelm them with new and higher fees. So we at Encompass, we actually have members who are using 10 DLC. So we do understand the benefits of it, but some of their customers have expressed concern, and that's why we wanted to raise it today. So with this amendment, we're not at all looking to denigrate the good work that 10 DLC has done in eliminating bad actors in this space. But we just think that adding this one sentence to the end of footnote 10 would recognize this important consumer angle. And also by adding this amendment, we are not taking a position on these concerns. It would just merely be a non-judgmental observation that would acknowledge that there are consumer groups out there that have concerns about 10 DLC regarding the potential increase in cost and their ability to reach customers and consumers.
Okay, so
Now, I'm going to drop this language in the chat now.
right, so we've heard the amendment. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and let's discuss the amendment before we have any movement to adopt. So I think I saw Margot's hand first, and then Mitzi, you were second. Margot? Remember to put your hand down when you're done too.
I'll put my hand down now. Thank you for letting me speak, and if this is not the right time, let me know. There is, as you may know, I, on behalf of NCLC and our clients and well over a dozen organizations representing consumers and privacy interests, regularly file comments before the Commission on TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, robocall, and related issues. And the issue that is implicit in the proposed amendment is somewhat controversial from the position of, from the point of view of many of the people that I represent and the groups that work with us. There is substantial controversy over whether these different mechanisms used for texts are required to have consent. And the consent requirement is essentially the issue that is imposed by Verizon and AT&T in their voluntary guidelines, in their guidelines. So because this amendment raises a host of other issues that were not really discussed or vetted through the committee and would require, I think, considerable additional caveats and additions, I would recommend against adopting it at this time.
Okay. Mitzi, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, and I guess I wanted to, there we go. I guess also just ask the question. So the proposal was to add this to footnote 10 first. That is what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Asking, okay. But in the document following it, around on page 8, and somewhere between footnotes 14 and 15 is where the explanation of what 10 DLC is. So one would be if it's just one is if the intention of the footnote of the addition is when you're talking about DLC and we're saying this is how messages can be originated, and it's saying that but some groups have expressed concern about their ability versus why are you asking for it in footnote to go along with footnote 10? Is it intended to modify or address something in the interpretation? Because the footnote 10 is specifically looking at CTIAs and others, basically industry messaging principles and best practices.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying. I think we would definitely be open to, if it was accepted, to be moving it anywhere that makes sense. I don't think we were necessarily saying it only had to be there. I think we thought it just made the most sense there because I also agree with you. I thought about what you're saying before that. And it's just, it is discussed in this footnote and it only pretty much has the industry string sites. So I think we thought it'd be helpful to just add another angle just to acknowledge it there. But I think that we would be very open to having it somewhere else in the report if that's helpful.
But okay, just to follow up, then is the purpose, and that gets to the previous person's comments. is the intention to just say, hey, there isn't necessarily agreement about, how these things or it's evolving? Or is the intention to say that what this order applies for and the actions the commission takes should be beyond, leave the door open for something beyond what you have now?
I would say the first. I think that just by adding it, I think it's really just acknowledging that this other side exists. We don't even want to take a position as incumbents, and we don't want to make it controversial. If it were to be added to the report, I think it's merely an acknowledgement. So I would say the first.
Okay, so then last part is what you're really trying to say is there are alternative best practices out there. See this site.
I think it's that when we're talking about the best practices, it's just there are concerns out there. So see this site, because I think in the footnote as it has it now, it doesn't acknowledge those concerns. So I think it's just acknowledging that those concerns exist.
Okay, but is it really about the 10 DLC, or it's really just about that you think that you have an alternative to CTIA's best practices?
I think it's really about the 10 DLC.
Okay, well, we can come back, Mitzi, if you have a follow-up. Rick, in the interest of time, could you go? And then after that, let's move to John.
Sure. Could you say something about what the concerns are? I'm not quite sure why a 10-digit number is a problem in itself. So there must be something going on that I'm not seeing. What are the concerns that you have?
Yeah, so it's not me, it's not my concerns, but there is a coalition about this, and there's some progressive advocacy groups and just some public interest groups that have concerns about this. And I'm not as steeped in the issue, but I know, for example, there is something, there are concerns about additional costs that will be on these groups if they have to use 10 DLC, and some barriers to reaching their customers if they have to use 10 DLC. I think in how they're scored based on the algorithms. And so I think that there's concern about ability to reach consumers through this type of messaging.
Okay, John?
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for putting forward this amendment. As someone who was intimately involved in the production of this report, I can tell you that we had many conversations from the very beginning about scope of the report and how to best respond to the charge letter. And I think, we could have spent a lot of time talking about the various live issues that still exist in the realm of text messaging, the definition of what is an illegal text message, the definition of what is an unwanted text message, what is the definition of an auto dialer. These are all issues that I think pertain to the 10 DLC issue that you're raising with this proposal. But in the interest of making sure that we kept the scope narrowly tailored to what the commission asked us to do in the charge letter, we intentionally tried to stay away from issues like the one that you raise with this proposal. And so why I don't want to suggest that the issues that the advocacy groups that you cite in this footnote are important. They are, and I hope that the commission continues to examine them. For purposes of this report, I do consider it to be outside of the scope. And so that's one reason why I will be voting against the proposal.
Okay, that's totally understood. I think that's really helpful context. So thank you for saying that. And I appreciate everyone taking the time. I do again want to say, I hope it wasn't taken as trying to be controversial and just putting this into the footnote just to acknowledge it. But John, I really appreciate that. And I understand that point completely.
Okay, so is there any further discussion? Okay, does anyone move to adopt Lindsay's amendment? Raise your hand. Does anyone move to adopt? All right, so hearing none, let's go back to the full recommendation again. Do we have any other amendments at this point, friendly or otherwise? Any other amendments? Any other comments? Okay, so if there's no objection, then I'd like to move on to a vote. So I propose we do this by roll call, so we have everyone on record properly. So let's move on. I know this is a little clunky, so I apologize for that. So let's start through. Debbie, have you vote?
Hey,
I
Steve.
vote. Oh.
Steve, sorry, this is John Brio. Just wanted to make sure that we're following the Roberts rules here. Did I hear when we began discussion, there was a motion to adopt, a second, we discussed, and now we're moving to a vote? Is that the order we're going in? Or do we need another motion to adopt?
No, after that, well, I think we already did that in order to adopt, and then we had discussion and amendment, and there were no other amendments, so I think we can move right to the vote.
Great, thank you. Sorry to be a stickler.
No problem. So let's just go right through the list. Project goal.
I vote yes.
AARP.
AARP abstains.
ACA Connects.
Yes.
American Council of the Blind.
ACB votes yes.
AT&T.
AT&T votes yes. Thank you.
Call for Action. Call for Action. Consumer Federation of America.
Yes.
Consumer Reports.
CR votes yes.
Consumer Technology Association. Oh, not present, excuse me. CTIA.
CTIA votes yes. Thank you.
Digital Liberty is not here. Digital Policy Institute.
DPI is a yes.
Encompass.
Encompass votes yes.
LGBT Technology Institute.
LGBT Tech votes yes.
Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications and Cable.
Vote yes. Thank you.
National Association of Broadcasters.
NAB votes yes.
National Association of State Utility Consumer Advocates.
Nasuko votes yes.
National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Administrators.
Toa votes yes.
National Conference of State Legislators. Not present. Let me skip that. National Consumer Law Center.
National Consumer Law Center votes yes.
And National Consumers League.
National Consumers League votes yes.
NCTA.
NCTA votes yes.
Next Century Cities.
Next Century Cities votes yes.
Rural Rise.
Rural Rise votes yes.
Taxpayer Protection Alliance.
Yes.
Telecommunications for the Deaf and Hard Hearing.
TDI votes yes.
US Telecom
US Telecom votes yes.
and ACI votes yes. Did I miss anyone? Did I miss anyone?
Steve, did we lose Shirley at some point?
She didn't answer.
Yeah, I don't see her on the screen here.
Right. So she is absent from the vote. And so I have 23 yays and 1 abstention. So let me get the video back on. There we go. All right. So with that roll call, the recommended report is passed, and thank you. That completes the main portion of today's work. And I wanted to thank the CAC members for their work today and recognize the very, very, very diligent efforts for the text blocking working group. With a working group steeped in expertise, I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity to work with all of you. And Deborah, did you want to add anything before we wind down here?
Well, let's see. I don't see you, Steve. Are you on? Wait, hold on. There you are. Hi. Well, I want to thank you, Steve, for how long we've been. I can't think of how many months, years, whatever it has been. The great job that you've been doing chairing the CAC. So thanks for all of your time and your effort. And you really got this nailed down, I must say. It went very smoothly. So thank you. And thanks, John, for your great presentation today. That was really a great summary. So excellent. It's been great work in a short period of time of the CAC. So wonderful working with all of you. Thanks so much.
Right. So I'll have to ditto that. And I have to tell you, John, thank you for stepping up today. That was so impressive. As I mentioned a couple times earlier, questions from the public can be sent to cac@fcc.gov. And let me check with the FCC folks right now. Do we have any comments from the public?
Was the public invited to this meeting?
Yeah, they're always, well, they're always able to add in and ask questions at some point. Were there any questions? Mike or Zach? Mike, do you know? So
Steve, I didn't see any
hearing none.
questions.
I'm sorry?
Hey, Steve, I didn't see any questions. This is Mike.
Okay. So if there's no questions, then like I said, hearing none, this concludes the main business today and the business of the CAC's current charter. But I do have one last question for the floor. Is there any new business? And hearing none, I move that the Consumer Advisory Committee be adjourned. Do I have a second?
This is John Gray, second.
And with that, thanks to everyone. Congratulations, farewell, and take care. This concludes the meeting.
Thanks, Steve.